Shalom, shalom. Welcome to the Natsari, Jewish woman, wife, and mother of Nava Michaels. I'd like to apologize for having to reschedule today's teaching. Time kind of ran away from me, and honestly, I forgot that I was scheduled to broadcast at 9 Central. But these are recorded both on my event page and YouTube for later viewing. So we're gonna go on and dive right on in. Shalom. Let's see. So, what are your parenting goals in this particular phase of mothering? What do you hope to accomplish? What foundation blocks can you lay that are more solid than your personal ideas? What goals are simple enough to remember, yet comprehensive enough to provide broadly applicable direction? We're going to go to Proverbs or Mishlei 1, 7 through 19. The word is definitely our key, and it's the foundation by which we stand. So let's go on and get that. Proverbs 1, 7 through 19. I need some prayer, sisters, because I am trying to learn this screen sharing. And just at the moment when I think I have it, I realize I don't. So I was going to actually have the scripture up for you, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and read it. Proverbs 1, verses 7 through 19 says, "The fear of Yahweh is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. Listen, my son, to your father's instructions, and do not forsake your mother's teaching. They will be a garland to grace your head and a chain to adorn your neck. My son, if sinners entice you, do not give in to them. If they say, 'Come along with us, let's lie in wait for someone's blood, let's waylay some harmless soul, let's swallow them alive like the grave and whole like those who go down to the pit. We would get all sorts of valuable things and fill our houses with plunder. Throw in your lot with us, and we will share a common purse.'" Let me see here, make sure we're moving in the right direction here. Okay, I'm sorry, sisters, I was reading the wrong. I've had a very hairy day today, so I'm sorry. It's Proverbs 1, 7 through 19. So I covet your prayers. Okay. Yes, okay, I'm on the right page. Okay, let's start at verse 15. "My son, do not go along with them. Do not set foot on their paths, for their feet rush into sin. They are swift to shed blood. How useless to spread a net in full view of all the birds. These men lie in wait for their own blood. They waylay only themselves. Such is the end of all who go after ill-gotten gain. It takes away the lives of those who get it." So as we stated in my last broadcast, in order to bring the sons of Jacob back home, we as mothers of Israel must be willing to lay down our rights and put on his righteousness. Now, in knowing and understanding what his righteousness entails, we also learn the vital and foundational role of prayer, and how when we learn and take his covenant and we speak it back to him and we stand firm on those promises, knowing that a covenant is a two-way active agreement, we have the confidence that Yahweh's word will not return to him void, but will accomplish whereunto the thing that he sent it, according to Isaiah 55, verse 11. This is key, and it's one in which Hashatan will attempt to take away from you. But I encourage you all to stand. We also understand that that Abba's power through prayer heals our souls, so that we're positioned to see as our Father does, and thus to pray with power and with results according to his covenantal agreement. We find in Proverbs or Mishlei, verse 24, verse 5, a wise man is strong. Yes, a man of knowledge increases strength. And again in Tehillim or Psalms 111, verse 10, the fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom. A good understanding of all those who do his commandments. So, as we know, the word purifies us. And as we continue to purify ourselves through that word, we have the confidence that we've received our responsibilities. We now have the knowledge and the understanding as handmaidens of Yahweh. So the question is, how, after that, after we built that foundation of prayer and standing on the word, how do we begin building these foundations within our sons? How do we instill within our sons the fear of Yahweh? The answer is, of course, always practical and spiritual. The two go hand in hand. If our faith isn't practical, it's not faith. And as Jacob says, show me your belief without your works, and I will show you my belief by my works. The fear of Yah and obedience to parental instruction really do go hand in hand. For as our sons learn the obedience of those elders in their lives, whom they can see, they will be learning how to fear the Father of spirits, whom they do not see, as this brings delight to his heart, and it comes with a lot of blessing. In Shemot, or Exodus 20, verse 12, it says to respect your father and your mother, so that your days are prolonged upon the soil which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you. So take the time with your sons, whether they're 2 or whether they're 20. Take time with your sons to instruct them in the scriptures. As young men, sit down with them consistently in the mornings and the evenings and throughout the day, teaching them the purity laws in Leviticus. Traditionally, it's a good time to begin teaching children at the age of 3. The book of Leviticus. They need to have Torah impressed upon their spirits by consistently speaking to them the wisdom, the knowledge, and the understanding of making the distinction between that which is clean and that which is unclean. That's why Leviticus is such an important book to begin them with, because they learn the distinction at a very early age while the cement is still wet, while that foundation is still being built, the clean and unclean laws of Torah. Tell them the stories of our glories when we obeyed, and of our falls when we disobeyed. And to show to them the wisdom of Solomon in Mishlei on Proverbs, the words of life of our Messiah, the letters of the Shlichim, the apostles. Teach them from the writings of Maccabees, of Ezra, Susanna, of Judith. It's also very important to teach them the honor and discipline of communing with their Heavenly Father. Draw them into your prayer life. Show them the secrets that bring Yah joy as we light the incense of praise and worship. Show them how to watch Yah's faithfulness as he answers their prayers. And as they're learning of purity, continue to impress upon them that when they enter into the Hakal, the most set apart place in prayer, it's as important to come before him with clean hands and a pure heart during that time as it is in living pure lives before him in all other aspects, as our lives are to be lives of worship, which is a sacrifice unto him. Teach them the sweet beauty of the prayers and psalms. Encourage them to even compose their own Tehillim, their own prayers to Yah. And I know from personal experience that when this atmosphere of praise fills their hearts and takes root in their spirits, it's amazing the fruit that will come forth. And in guiding our benot, our benim, our children, back to Yah. We need to know as a doorpost upon our hearts the scripture in Proverbs 22:6, and this is the bedrock of my life. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. To train, and that's a lesson, that's a teaching all by itself, but to train and to raise are two different methods. Raising employees giving the child food, clothes, and a roof over their heads. In fact, if you listen to the elders, my father, when we speak of the garden, he refers to planting a garden as raising a garden, giving the garden what it needs: a good soil composition, um, the right amount of sun and water. So raising denotes giving the child food, giving the child clothes, a roof over their heads. Training implies a more intimate relationship. Abba is calling us to do both. When we speak of training, we're not just talking about the rudimentary tasks that involve chores and schoolwork. Though this develops character and it's a foundation to more in-depth form of training, we're also speaking about those gifts and talents given to your son at a very early age. And when you closely observe them, a mother can usually discern a particular way that a child should go. We call it a bend. This is very important in obedience training, as depending on the natural inclination, this is a clue as to the type of training that our son needs. Take a look at Job with me. Job 32, verse 8. But truly it is the spirit in man and the breath of the Almighty that gives him understanding. It's the spirit in man and the breath of the Almighty that gives him understanding. When we speak about training, we must also understand that Hebrews hold to a holistic view of life. All knowledge comes from Yah and is for human good. There is no vast division between secular and spiritual. And according to a commentator named Duncan Ferguson, there are 4 highlights of education in ancient Israel. And I really wish I could put this up on screen share. So again, pray for me. In another broadcast, I hope to have this all together. But according to Duncan Ferguson, number 1, 4 highlights of education in ancient Israel. Number 1, it was very practical in nature. It was often passed on in the home by the parents or acquired in guilds. It provided basic instruction in crafts and vocational pursuits. For more on that, go to Exodus chapters 35 and 36. Number 2, it gave guidance in worldly wisdom. The wisdom literature, as found in Proverbs, in Job and Ecclesiastes, provides direction for coping with life, especially in social and economic relations. And that's in Proverbs chapter 1, verses 2 and 3. Number 3, it provided instruction in an ethical way of life. The emphasis is often on learning the law of Yahweh, Exodus 20, verses 1 through 17. And I would encourage you all, if you haven't already, if you would just go get yourself a pen and a notepad and start taking notes. These are being recorded, as I said earlier, so you can always go back and review them later. But it's always a good idea, especially with me, to have a notepad and pen ready, because I give quite a bit of scriptural references. So number 3, as I said, it provided instruction in an ethical way of life. The emphasis is often on learning the law of Yahweh. And number 4, it was a vehicle to pass on the traditions that bind the community together, give it a common language, and provide the symbols for the celebration of a good and meaningful life. There is a special emphasis on remembrance of what Elohim has done. Deuteronomy 26, verses 8 through 9. Okay. Unlike the Hellenic or the Greek thinking, whose focus was the mere transference of knowledge in the intellectual and technical areas like music, art, reading, or athletics. So in ancient Greek society, only the wealthy and leisure classes were enlightened through education. Our English words, school and scholar, derive from the Greek verb shalazo, which means to have leisure, to have spare time, to have nothing to do. In contrast, Hebrew education was and still is for all the people and concerns, the whole person. In summary, the Greeks learned in order to comprehend, while the Hebrews learned in order to revere. I'll repeat that. Greeks learned in order to comprehend, while Hebrews learned in order to revere or to respect, to give honor to. Job 38:8 says, no, that's not the correct rendering. In the book of Job, it says, who enclosed the sea with doors when it burst forth and came from the womb? When I made the clouds its garments and thick darkness its swaddling band, and assigned for it my law, and set bars and doors, and said, this far you have come, but no farther, and here your proud waves stop. The Most High Yahweh is in Elohim order and boundaries. And in this written command, he is showing us that he is mightier than we. And his wisdom, his understanding, and his knowledge is something that we can never fathom unless and until he decides to open our understanding and share those gifts with us. Our flesh wants to buck against this, but it's a truth that must be submitted to if we're to live. But he gladly pours it upon us as we seek him with our whole hearts. And that is key. We must seek him with our whole hearts. Proverbs 3:11 says, my son, do not despise the discipline of Yahweh, and do not loathe his reproof. For whom Yahweh loves, he reproves, as a father the son whom he delights in. The reference again is in Mishlei chapter 3, verses 11 and 12. Sisters and wives, your sons, in essence, need to understand that you are the queen of your home. The queen sits at the right hand of the king to help influence his decisions. So being a righteous woman, a righteous mother of Israel, who is guided by the instruction of Torah, you stand next in command to the man in carrying out the plans, in carrying out the purposes, and in carrying out the pursuits of your men in training of your home. If you're single, you're still carrying the mantle of bride, as Yeshua is the bridegroom and the soon coming king. And though we can never stand in position to manipulate him, nor the men in our lives, we can stand, and yes, we're called to stand, according to Jeremiah 9:17, in intercession for them in prayer, and leave the outcome in his hands. This is the strong position of any queen of her kingdom. She is a woman of wisdom, an intercessor par excellence. A little French there. The righteous Ima knows her place of power and influence and stays content and confined within it, teaching her Benot the same. Know your place of power and influence. Stay content, stay confined within it, and teach your children the same. If they're going to understand boundaries, then they have to learn it from you. You have to be that example for them at all times, because they are definitely watching. So the way a mother of Israel asserts her identity is also of utmost importance. And as I've said, I believe I had it in another broadcast, an earlier broadcast, males are sight-oriented. And psychologically, how you dress, your habits, your speech, your demeanor are being encoded within them. And when they're older, it will be your spirit that they will look for and find in an ishet, in a wife. You become the model of true womanhood for him, whether that's good or whether that's bad. And their sharpened sense of discernment with the help of Yah and your continued guidance will guide them in this way. So be thoughtful of that. What was lost by our disobedience, Yahweh has restored to us through the Son, according to Matthew 16:19. It's not about rights, but it's about grace-filled authority that we realize as we train our sons. That's another bedrock. Grace. It's about grace. And that will be transferred when we realize that in and of ourselves, we're nothing but dirty, filthy whores, sinners before the Most High Elohim. We've committed adultery before him, and we deserve the lowest parts of Sheol. But because of the grace of the Mashiach, he has enclosed us. He has placed upon us his robes of righteousness. And so when we get a hold of that and begin to live out our lives in that grace-filled authority, that will be transferred to our sons. And that is how we will begin training our sons. It begins also with your facial expressions and your tone of voice, that they learn to read what pleases you and what doesn't. When you say, like to your little ones, affirm no or lo, if you're teaching them Hebrew, when they press past those boundaries and following up with the necessary chastisement, which is a major foundation established in establishing boundaries. As early as infancy, your son should learn what's loosed or allowed and what's bound or forbidden for them. It's better to have a bright, serene, simple home, one that's family friendly. If your home is highly decorated and you're too tense to enjoy it, something's wrong. Your home has become a shrine and you need to do some downsizing. So scale back, get rid of those ornate items if you have to, and focus on training your sons in righteousness. So again, I know I'm kind of going past these kind of quickly, but again, we can go back over this, the recorded version. So as they progress through middle and latter infancy and on into toddlerhood, somewhere between 6 months to 2 years, as they begin to test boundaries, sometimes 3 years, they begin to test those boundaries, they begin to explore their world. What you do and what you say will have a direct bearing on how well they learn self-government. Enough can't be said about consistency in this area. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where the mothers end up being tested themselves as far as their ability to stay motivated and to stay strong in this area of consistency. The reason parents fail during the toddler years, again, I said, is as a result of a lack of consistency. I hear people say all the time, oh no, they're into those terrible 2s or 3s. Believe it or not, this doesn't have to be the case at all. It all depends on where you are in your knowledge at the time when you begin parenting. Some of us are further along than others, but that's okay. There's no condemnation. You're returning to Yah, and through the blood of Yeshua, as you continue to go forward, his grace will get you to your desired goal, which are restored sons of Yah. It's never too late to start, whether they're 2 or whether they're 20. I know I'm talking about the little ones now, but this is still applicable to our older sons, and we will get more into teachings on the adult sons later on. Modeling and training consistency and righteousness is the key. So having a set place for them to play and a routine establish boundaries beautifully. Knowing what to expect when instills security. When they're older, from middle childhood to teen years, having set boundaries and routine is still very much needed. It all begins when the children are very little. Okay. Each family should have their own set of halakha, their own path of how they understand Torah in their particular lives that they live by. So a halakha, as I said, is a particular way that a person or family walks according to our Hebrew laws. It can take in television viewing, what type, when, if, gaming boundaries, friendships, sleepovers, clothing, makeup for girls, employment for our sons. The list goes on and on. And again, that's something that we can and probably will talk about, discuss at a later time. Having set times for meals, schoolwork, chores, family outings establishes a flow. This may be challenged in teen years as they begin to develop their own identity, but instead of it becoming a battleground, use it as an opportunity for growth and training unto righteousness. So as your so-called teen, I use the word teen, but I honestly do not believe biblically there is such a word, but just for the sake of probably a mixed audience here, I'm just speaking in terms that we can all um, understand. So as your teen son displays faithful maturity in showing himself responsible in any given area, letting him in on some of the wisdom behind your commands, and negotiating somewhat on your rules may be in order. It depends on what the nature of the appeal is. This is a testing and trying time, especially if your son has been rebellious. So remember modeling and training consistency in righteousness. I can't say that enough. So one last thing I'd like to say before closing. This teaching has been focused on the mother, but please don't think you're alone in parenting, even though it may either appear to be that way or very well may be your reality. Maybe you're single and you're going it alone. So what do? Well, Yeshua is your help. He promised in his word that he would never leave you or forsake you. He sent his rock, his spirit, to be your constant companion, to be your comforter, to be your teacher. Secondly, I am here for you. There are other elder sisters of Israel who are here for you. And behind us are, maybe, if you don't realize it or not, our whole community of believers who stand ready to help in whatever way we can. Now, I don't claim to know it all, but I have learned some things, and I love to serve my sisters. So if you need prayer, if you need someone to talk to, or you're trying to find a community of Israelite believers in Messiah and his Torah who live to love and serve you in Yah, you can contact me at either my Facebook page at Nava Michaels or Nava_Michaels at yahoo.com, and we'll take it from there. So just know that Mother Yah is faithful, and he's always a very, very present help in times of need. Just trust in him, and he'll never fail you. No matter what form his help may come in, just receive it, knowing that he hears your every cry and is there to meet your every need before you even ask him. He's a good Eloah. So my next teaching on Brit mothering, aka righteous mothering, will focus on disassociation from wicked companions. Until then, I wish you shalom.